Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Ben Craven is a cinematic progressive rock artist from Brisbane, Australia, and he likes to make records. His 2016 album, Last Chance to Hear, was a stunning, triumphant musical masterpiece of progressive rock. The grandness of the album suggested it was performed by a 5 or 6 piece band. Craven explained in keeping with the idea of the album as an endangered species, the new album's title is Last Chance to Hear. It's another solo album in the true sense of the word, where I play just about everything, like on Potions. The difference this time is a much greater portion has turned out to be instrumental. Not that I dislike vocals, but sometimes the music can be strong and emotional and moving enough to stand on its own without them. There was also a special appearance on the album by legendary Star Trek actor William Shatner, providing spoken word vocals for the track Spy in the Sky Part 3. Craven's most recent release, Monsters from the Id, is the logical realization of Craven's musical trajectory thus far. It's an album of 2 halves, each containing a traditional progressive rock epic, the length of a side of a vinyl. The 2 pieces comprise flowing parts and movements with both rock and Hans Zimmer-esque orchestral arrangements, punctuated by Ben's distinctive lead guitar and vocals, yet the album is predominantly instrumental. Please welcome Aussie prog-rock singer, multi-instrumentalist, composer, producer Ben Craven to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Ray. I'm humbled and don't know what to say, and checks in the mail, and imposter syndrome. It's lovely to meet you, sir.
My grandson's name is Ben, so we'll get along really good.
Oh, well, yeah, if you like him, excellent.
I got to tell you, man, Monsters from the Id. Okay, here's what I said about it. When the music alone visualizes an epic and spellbinding story, cinematic, outstanding, brilliant, 5 stars all the way. It's a great album, man. I really mean that.
Oh, I really, really appreciate that. It's, I guess, you know, it's hard to say. I had the opportunity to create one of those albums with the epic. You know, it's Monsters from. It's all about the epic. And I would say my whole musical life, I've been trying to get good enough to do something that was a side long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, growing up on the Yes albums,
Right.
you know, obviously we're talking close to the edge here. Growing up on Echoes by Pink Floyd, even the Mike Oldfield albums, those first few Mike Oldfield albums where he's got a part 1 and a part 2. And, you know, that was something I've always aspired to. And I don't know, the stars lined up, the music lined up, the work on the previous albums that I've been working to get to, everything I've been learning. And, yeah, I was able to do an album with not 1, but 2 epics, as you know, as we loosely call them.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the sense that they're artistically brilliant, but in the sense that they're 20 minutes long. So, yeah, so it was, that's an album specifically geared that way, made for vinyl. It's not on vinyl yet, but, you know, it's certainly, you can see where the influences are.
Sure. Now, is this the Id monster from Forbidden Planet?
That's the one.
That's the one, right?
Yeah. So I saw that movie, I suppose, for the first time, 30 years ago, something like that.
Right.
And watching it, you know, which I absolutely loved it, but I had the notebook in me when that scene came up, when he said, it's Monsters from the Id, John, Monsters from the Id. I wrote it down in a notebook that long ago, and on one big page of this, you know, this A4 note, circled it and say, album title, and then forgot about it. But yeah, I found myself rewatching, you know, a remastered, restored version of Forbidden Planet last year or the year before, whenever it was, and it came back, and that's. I mean, I always loved the film, but then it's also got that connection to The Tempest,
Right.
by Shakespeare. So it's it's a in some quarters it's a modern retelling of The Tempest in a science fiction context. So I thought, well, that's interesting, and obviously looking for inspiration of what the lyrics could be about. So that generally kind of drove the idea. It would have been nice to have it more of a one-to-one correlation, so you could say it's a concept album completely inspired by that.
Right.
But in the end, I just stole the title, really. I didn't want to get too pretentious.
You know what's interesting too? I looked this up. There was actually an Australian radio adaptation of the movie using the original electronic music and local actors, which was broadcast in 1959, which was very cool.
That.
You didn't know that, huh?
No. Well, the original music is extraordinary. The tones. I don't even think they call it music, do they?
Yeah. Well, I guess you can say
the
that.
Experimental tonal.
Right.
I'm trying to think. It's got some term for it. Anyway, not important.
Yeah.
It is, and I love the sound effects on it, and the early kind of synth sounds are out of this world.
And your album cover, of course, is it Freya? Is that how you pronounce her name?
Freya. Yeah.
Freya Dean, Roger Dean's daughter. She did the artwork, and Roger did some of your previous artwork as well.
Yes, so Roger did Great and Terrible Potions, and that was 2 albums ago, and that was kind of a watershed line in the sand moment leading up to making that album, and where I was encouraged myself to make a prog album. So look, and I'm not to cast aspersions on Australia, but the Australian musical scene, if you want to be successful in Australia, in the local scenes, you don't do prog rock.
Well, here too.
Oh, right.
It's the same thing.
You don't do prog. You've got to present yourself as a singer-songwriter or, some kind of indie band or something.
Right.
I guess it's the same everywhere to try to get on the radio or try to get on shows or get on festivals. And I was, at a crossroads at that point where either I'm writing this like an alt country singer-songwriter album that I was going to try and prog up with a concept, or I've got this more progressive music that I can go on. And I guess I took that path, and it was through a mutual friend who suggested, you know what this needs? It needs a Roger Dean cover. And it was like, what are you talking about? I got no business having a Roger Dean cover. It's ridiculous. But a lot of conversations, and one thing led to another, and lo and behold, Roger, he did the cover, he did the artwork we did a vinyl version, he did the lettering, and it looked $1 million. And surprisingly, I think it even sounded the way it looked.
It did. Yeah.
And so again, that was a watershed moment. That was a fork in the road. And, I guess I've tried to keep that connection going. I met Freya after that period and made contact with her, and, I've caught up with a couple of times with her in Japan. And, she is equally as talented. Obviously, she's trying to forge her own path. But the work that she's done, just simply for my album covers, blows me away as well. And it's really interesting spotting that the similarity in the work, the influences, how much of it is genetic, how much of it is learned, I don't know.
Yeah. It's amazing. It really is. Well, you know what this means, don't you? That means you have legendary prog status now. You can't help it. You got Roger Dean. You got the Dean family doing your covers.
That's probably completely undeserved, but I'll take whatever I can get at this point. So, Awesome.
You're amazing. Okay, anybody can be a multi-instrumentalist the way you can and play everything on the record and do the engineering and producing. I mean, that's, there's not many people that can do that. People that come to mind, of course, is Todd Rundgren and,
Yeah.
guys like that,
Todd.
But
Yeah, I guess
it's an amazing feat. Yeah.
That was born out of necessity, really, because in the same way that you don't do prog rock in Australia, especially. So I'm in Brisbane.
Right.
It's not even, it's nowhere near the music capital of Australia. We do good work. We've got some good bands that have come out of here, but
right.
It's not where everyone stays. And because I didn't move to Sydney or to Melbourne or something, it's still equally difficult to find prog musicians or like-minded prog musicians who'd want to play in a band, all that sort of stuff. So, I'm not super proud of saying, oh, I played all the instruments on the album.
You should
or
be.
did it myself. It's more like, well, that's what I had to do to record the music, to get the music out there, I guess, to see through the vision.
You musicians are very hard on yourself. Everybody I talk to is the same way. You're never satisfied with what you do.
It also everyone does it these days. Everyone can do it these days. We've all got our multi-track studios. When I guess Les Paul probably started it, but the one that blew me away again was listening to Mike Oldfield.
Yeah,
in the early days.
Incredible.
God, he's played everything, and
yeah,
and that's really an inspiration. I think there is a whole generation of musicians who've grown up thinking that's normal, and so we all do it now. And I would love to say it's extraordinary, but it's certainly nowhere near as extraordinary as it used to be.
Yeah, but you wrote some good music. You really
Ray,
did.
Every question you ask, I think I'm just going to belittle it and turn it around.
I think you are.
Yeah, okay, I'll stop that. Let's go.
We're like good cop, bad cop.
I can't control him when he gets like this, really.
Okay, one song you did on this album should have been a big hit. Okay, if radio was only like it used to be, terrestrial radio, and I was a DJ, I was a top 40 guy back in the late 70s, so I know what a hit
when
is.
It was good.
Die Before You Wake is a hit, and it's amazing. Okay, I really think that. Not only that, it's a great title for the next James Bond song, and it's a great song for the next James Bond movie. It really is. See, there you go again. You're making that face.
No. I was thinking about what I'm going to say. No, you're absolutely right in terms of the inspiration, in terms of the direction. The Bond theme again is something that I guess a lot of people aspire to, and and these same people who aspire to it know it's not going to happen, because it's a very political situation, and it's a very record company, Sony Music, and they've got to pick the right, all that sort of stuff. But that it still doesn't stop us trying to write that kind of music and occasionally throw a few references into it.
Right.
And I can't remember where "Die Before You Wake" that title came from. I didn't nick it. That's the important thing. But it's the single edit is, I think, certainly an attempt to do a Bond theme in 7/8. Still got a bit of brass, and perhaps if it was Hans Zimmer doing a Bond theme in 7/8, that's maybe what it would sound like. Then with all my kind of influences over the top, but I guess it's out there as an ad. It's out there as a demo. You could use this.
Well, if I have any influence out there, if I find the right people in charge, I'm going to recommend this song.
Ray, you get 15%.
Listen, that's good. That's fine with that. I never get paid for anything. I'll take anything I can.
That's the music industry, isn't it?
Well, but the title, "Die Before You Wake," I mean, it's perfect. It's a perfect title for a Bond song,
Well, there's on the previous album, there is a faux Bond song on the previous album, which doesn't have a Bond title, but it's called "The Remarkable Man." But if you hear that, it's sort of a Henry Mancini-esque Bond film, And on Potions, there was another attempt at a Pond song, and that one's called "Nobody Dies Forever," and that certainly was a little play on words for both kind of James Bond films and also the whole movie industry, where you know that if someone's dead in the film, that doesn't mean anything these days.
No.
They're going to be alive 5 minutes later, or in the next film they come back.
Yeah,
And you see it again and again and again.
that's true.
And,
I'm gonna miss Daniel Craig though. He was a good Bond.
yeah, I was just
He was
really,
good.
really sad the way he went out.
I know. Me too.
It was, although it seemed like it was a play on reality too. I think
Yeah.
it felt like he wasn't acting. He was really sick of the role. He was sick
Yeah.
of being Bond. He hated being Bond. And, you know, by the end of that time, he's just glad it's all over, I
Yeah.
suspect.
Yeah. Sean Connery was tired of it too.
Oh,
know?
yeah. I
Yeah.
watched a doco on that a few
Yeah.
weeks ago. And yeah, I guess that's the artist in them, but it is tragic that these people who are so good at their roles despise their roles so much.
They don't want to be typecast, I guess.
Yeah,
They
I
wanna do other
guess.
roles.
But see, Daniel Craig, he doesn't want to be typecast. He doesn't want to be in a franchise.
Right.
So, Knives Out, Glass Onion. He's
Yeah.
in a franchise now. He's
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess he gets to play someone completely different from.
Oh yeah,
from
he's a
Bond.
good actor. I mean, to hear him do other accents besides, the British secret agent, is pretty cool. On the last movie
Yeah.
he did, yeah,
Yeah, that
The Southern
that
accent, right?
Foghorn
Yeah.
Leghorn.
yeah, exactly.
Colonel Sanders thing. He's
Good
got going on.
description, very good description. You know your cartoon, sir.
Well, they had the best music too. Those cartoons,
They did.
the kind
They
of
had-
Carl Stalling, Looney Tunes stuff, awesome
right.
stuff. Anyway,
They sure
I
did.
digress.
The track, not only does it have great lyrics, great guitar work, and a lot of people refer to the guitar work a little bit like Gilmore, like David Gilmour, which that's quite a compliment, I think.
It's well, yeah. I mean, clearly, Gilmore is my favorite guitarist,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think Mark Knopfler was probably my first original favorite
Yeah,
guitarist, but he made it look so hard to me that it didn't seem like anything I'd be able to do. So while he was, technically brilliant and did awesome solos and played wonderfully, he wasn't actually someone who inspired me to play.
mm-hmm.
But getting across the Gilmore solos and seeing him play, so, in my head, geez, that's something, right? That's something maybe I could do.
Sure.
Where his playing was slower, was kind of more thoughtful. He's trying to pick the right note. You get longer notes where there's a bit of expression on the note. You've got time to think. You've got these phrases going on, and so he was clearly someone who inspired me to play and normalized the idea of every song needing a guitar solo.
Right.
Now, whether or not I don't think other people think that, but when I'm listening to a song, right, where's the solo?
Yeah.
But
I got
fairly-
inspired to play guitar with Alvin Lee. I learned how
Ah.
to play through Alvin Lee because a lot of his licks were, well, except for his solo efforts, but the regular stuff he did was pretty easy to do. You
Right.
know, yeah,
I mean, the other side of the coin is when you see someone who is so good, it kind of makes you double over and cry and want to give up.
mm-hmm.
And I saw that when I saw Steve Hackett a few years ago
Yeah,
on one of his Genesis Revisited tours.
he's
And,
incredible, isn't he?
well, we managed to get front row in this little theater here in Brisbane to see
Yeah.
him, and he was literally like 3 meters away, and oh God, he was just so flawless and such a conduit. And yeah, I actually walked away thinking, again, I've got no business playing guitar. This, oh, you could never. That's just so wonderful. So yeah, it's probably the opposite effect of what he wants to have on people.
Get Steve Hackett to play on one of your albums. I know Steve. He's been on the show many times. He's a really nice guy. He'll play on your album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, I think, well, and here's a segue. Here's a segue. So I recorded a track with an Australian, I guess, bass group, United
Right.
Progressive Fraternity,
Okay.
or UPF, and they're kind of an offshoot of Unitopia, which was which is an Australian.
Right.
But they've done a big collaborative set of albums. So they've got an album coming out where I believe Steve Hackett is on one of the tracks, but not on the one I worked on. So
Yeah.
at least I've got that degree of separation from Steve Hackett so
Right.
far.
Yeah, he's played on a lot of other artists' recordings. You know, I think
Yeah.
he likes to do that. He's a good guy.
I have to tell you one bit though, and I saw him a few months ago. A few months ago, probably. Again, on one of the Genesis Revisited tours, and he
Right.
came out here, and I think he was playing "I Know What I Like" in Your Wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing that song, and normally he has his solo in the middle, and there was a problem on stage with the mic stand, and the mic was dipping down, and somehow the mic got knocked, and it knocked his guitar,
Oh, wow.
and probably put his guitar out of tune a bit, and you could tell he wasn't very happy about this. But then he went on to express that in this completely deconstructed, angry solo in the middle of "I Know What I Like," and I'd never seen anything like it before. I wished I was bootlegging it or have a video or something to watch it later, because I saw the other performances. There was nowhere near that level of anger and bluesy angst. So
Yeah.
and he was fine after that, as if he'd got it out of his system. So
He's a pro, man.
yeah.
Yeah. Here's another track. How do you? Of course, this is was it Amnis Flows Acertunum?
Well, no, just
Aeternum.
Eternum or Aeternum.
Aeternum.
I believe it's misspelled anyway.
Okay.
One of the reviews took exception to the.
That's all they
the
care
Latin,
about. They don't care about the
Latin
music,
phrasing.
just how it's
No.
spelled. You know.
But I mean, it's sort of a joke anyway. That title, when you're doing something that sounds that pretentious, there's a bit of tongue in cheek, and there is a bit of tongue in cheek about that song. But
Right.
if you look at the lyrics, and no one's really noticed this, probably because no one really cares. But
I care.
well, there we go. Omnis flows eternum. It's kind of about water flowing, streaming. So you get this idea of streaming, and then we're talking about streaming content. We're talking
Right.
about Spotify. We're talking about torrents. We're talking about all torrents, all this kind of stuff. So there's a facade of it. Lyrics almost, it's like a medieval hymn. It's like a medieval kind of prayer, and the words are meant to look grand and look big and sound, and it's almost meant to be an actor on a stage in a play pronouncing these words.
That's what it sounds like.
And there's but there's also kind of an alternative meaning about the music business, which again, it's very cliche and boring to talk about that all the time,
Right.
which is why it's wrapped up in this kind of veneer.
Sure.
So yeah, there is actually a reason for that title, with that faux Latin-esque, incorrectly constructed title. But yes, Omnis Flows Eternum, and that's how I pronounce it, and there's probably a million better ways to do it.
Well, here's an example. Dead and senseless hearts, blind to all the parts, make no works of art. Omnis flows eternum. Spare us from our prejudice. Teach us grateful reverence. Bathed are we in blessed streams. Lo, behold, our muse redeemed. Yeah, you're right. Sounds like an actor on the stage,
Yeah, it's meant to be that. It's also meant to be something that you could find in an old manuscript, an old document, an old book. And then that also has that interpretation you could have each line of how we are being drip fed. Can I say swear words on your show?
You can say anything you want.
All right. Basically, how we are being just drip fed shit via
Right. Sure.
Spotify suggested plays and everything that comes up on. So you might like this and you might like that. No, I don't like that. And I don't even know why you think I'm going to like that. And, you know, but it's a pretty unpleasant topic, but I slipped it in there.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a book called The Rockstar Chronicles. That's series 1. And my intro is all about the state of the music industry. So I'm right with you on that.
It's,
you know,
I don't know. I mean, like I think I'm a relic. I'm a relic of the past, even though I would say I'm a generation after them.
Yeah.
But it's,
well, listen, I grew up in the 60s listening to Top 40. Top 40 radio had Motown, Frank Sinatra, the Beatles. I mean, everybody, all the greatest legends were on one station, you know?
Yeah.
And we went from that to crap. It shouldn't be that way. It should be the other way around. We should be getting better, you know?
I don't know. I think it would be getting better if you had the best and brightest going into music.
They don't care about the music.
Composing.
That's the problem. They don't care. They just see dollar signs, whatever sells.
And,
you know.
I mean, that's. I guess that's the way it's always been. But you still haven't got those. You still haven't got those passionate people,
right?
Running labels, I suppose.
Right.
As a, you know, a lot of that music. I guess maybe after the 60s, certainly 70s, you know, it took them 4 or 5 albums to get good.
Mm-hmm.
And the record deal was structured so that I suppose they got paid a living wage to continue to make music and continue to hone their skills until, you know, the combination of that and anyway. But I mean, it's not going to happen anymore. Not with social media, not with TikTok, not with 10-second videos, not with you know, that kind of notoriety. You can skip the whole process of being a musician if fame and kind of recognition is what you're after. That's not something you go in anymore.
30 years from now, is Taylor Swift going to still be around, that music, or is Pink Floyd still going to be around to listen to?
Well,
you know?
I don't want to. I mean, Taylor's probably the best of the bunch at the moment.
Oh God, I can't stand Taylor Swift. I can't, you know, that kind of music just, I can't, you know, because the women I grew up with were like Carly Simon and, you know, Carole King, and they were, you know, they were incredible. I mean,
yeah. Look, I guess I'm at the point where I don't really see any music that's been created in the last 10 years, 15, 20 even.
Right.
Well, maybe not 20, but, you know, I can't see any of this batch of music that's been coming out being remembered in 30, 40 years' time the way that we are still remembering the 60s and the 70s and then somewhat the 80s. I think kind of it's, you know, I can still switch on a radio. Hang on. Extra. Oh, well, this extra light. Another monitor's come on. That's why I'm suddenly all...
Oh, that's all right.
Anyway, you know, you switch on the radio and the stations are still playing the same songs.
Right.
At least the stations that I find myself journeying to, they're still playing the same things from the 80s and the 70s.
Yeah.
And that still blows my mind that not only are they playing it, clearly they're making money playing it. They're getting the advertising revenue. People actually still want to hear it. You know, I don't think you get a station that's playing. We're playing the best of pop from the 2010s. You know, I don't think people are going to remember that. So you are absolutely true. That in 30, 40 years' time, absolutely, I think they still will remember Pink Floyd and those bands.
But you know, there are so many good prog artists today, and that's what I'm doing. I'm fishing around, and I bring them on my show. You know. Like, I'm very impressed by you, especially, but I've had Andy Glass on recently, you know, guys like that. I'm looking at my, let's see, who else? Jonas Lindberg is coming up. Right. He's a new artist. He's, you know, another great, from Sweden, I believe. Who else do I have coming up? I'm looking at, I got some oldie guys too, as well. Like I had Mike Pinero on, and Yogi Lang from RPWL. Do you know that?
Oh yeah, sure.
Very Pink Floydish, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, great band, from Germany. You got to find these guys. They deserve, all you guys deserve to be heard, because
I
you're
think
incredible artists.
I think we're living in a great time to be a listener and
Hmm.
to be a consumer, even
Sure.
of this kind of progressive rock music. I agree. There is, to a fault, there's so much stuff out there, and there's so much good stuff out there that for anyone, I suppose, to break through and look extraordinary is very difficult now. But it is a treasure. There is a treasure trove of new
There
music
is.
out there, and it's just so difficult to find if you don't know what you're looking for, or if you're more of a mainstream music fan and you don't realize that this stuff exists. I don't know how you how you find this stuff anymore. Or just
It's hard. You got to dig deep.
yeah, I guess you got to be interested enough to dig. But
Right.
if you do dig, it's out there.
Yep.
Just a lot of it probably without that promotional support that
Yeah,
the classics had, and big record labels
exactly.
making this music ubiquitous.
Well, a lot of those guys got ripped off too, even
Oh
in the
yeah,
60s and 70s.
that's
So,
right.
you know,
Absolutely. I think
those,
that's at least the
yeah,
common thread is people getting ripped off
right.
or not.
I do hunt for music. I will say I'll go on YouTube. You put
Hmm.
in new prog rock artists and that
All
kind of
right.
thing. But Morrow.com,
Yes.
MOROW, they're
Yes.
good. They put out a lot of new stuff. Sometimes they're repetitive,
Hmm.
and they get hooked on some of the things they like. But if there's a new album out, they'll play it.
That's
Which is
awesome.
great.
I've got a lot of time for morrow.com because they always come up as search results in my ego searching. So
Yeah.
they're awesome.
Well, that's where I heard
Oh,
"Die Before You Wake"
all
on
right.
Morrow.com. And when I heard it, I went bananas. I said, "Man, guy's great."
Appreciate that.
That should be a
Would that
hit.
have been the short single version or
Yeah,
the
it was
the
it
20?
was a
All
short
right.
version. Yeah,
See, yeah, a lot of people don't like the single edits, don't like the
really.
concept of the single edit. Yeah, as if it's. I mean, I can see where they're coming from, where it may devalue
Right.
the full length track, and that you've listened to an album and you've got these single edits
I like
squirreled
them.
away at the end.
It's almost, to me, it's like it's top 40 ready. Like they
I
did back in the day. Because that's all they're going to play anyway if it made it to terrestrial radio.
well,
Yeah.
I like them also because they're a way to encapsulate a bit of the music.
Right.
And look, in my case, I do them. I try and do a 3 or 4 minute edit of some of these bits, and the single edit is probably different. There's a different ending. It's constructed differently, and it's kind of an attempt to make something standalone. Uh, you just listen to it in a few minutes, get that shot in the head of
Hmm.
dopamine or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
move on to something else.
That song deserves so much more. I'm telling you.
I really appreciate that.
I
It's
really mean that. And it's a hit, in my opinion. It's a great song, and all your songs are cinematic, like you say. They are cinematic, epic. Most of them belong in movies. Have you ever had a song in a soundtrack?
not in a movie yet. I mean, clearly it's something I'm aspiring to and trying to work towards.
Yeah,
I've had a few, TV shows where there's a bit of
right.
a song in the background, but that market is overcrowded as well. It's again, there's just so many talented people out there
Got to keep
who,
trying, man.
yeah,
You know,
but
you never know. You
a,
get the right person.
a
I'm
lot a lot of
pushing.
music on. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm pushing my book
Mm.
to be a sitcom.
Oh
And
wow,
and I'm talking to a lot of people, producers, this and that,
yeah.
whatever, but you're going to get turned down a bunch of
Mm.
times before you find the right person. It's the same thing. There's a lot of competition for a TV show. I wanted to go, say, on Hulu or Netflix,
Mm.
something like that. It's a very funny story about me growing up in the family business, you know, and it's true. I don't know
No,
what's going on with cameras.
I will be very, very boring for a second though, and say
Sure.
the market. We're talking about, you know, the current state of music, but the market of aspirational musicians out there
Right.
who want to get into that stuff, who want to get into film and scoring and that kind of stuff, that itself is a phenomenal market, and there are
Yes.
so many training courses and
I
educators out
know.
there who make a living
They do.
of getting these
Right.
hopeful aspirational musicians together,
You're
selling them a
100%
product,
right.
which yeah,
Yeah.
and that's sort of how tragic the situation is, where you've got that many people wanting to do it, willing to part with really good money,
Yeah.
in some cases for information that is available for free if you know where to look.
Exactly. And you got to know
I guess,
somebody, you know,
and yeah, that's
you got to know somebody.
really what it comes down to. You do have to know someone, and I
Yeah.
guess you've got to maximize your chances of getting to know someone as well.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, there's a lot of orchestra and a lot of that kind of film-esque music in the Monsters from the Id album.
It's great.
And I guess because I like it, first and foremost. It's for no other reason, but yeah, you've got there's a whole palette. Palettes are like a wooden thing that you put stuff on, but a palette is one of those to play with. And yeah, and when you haven't got other musicians in the band, you haven't got anyone to fight with.
That's right.
Well, I think
That's
this
a good
should be
point.
a guitar here. No, I think I'll make that the string section. You know.
Yeah, you can't break up with yourself, you know.
Well, yeah, you can certainly piss yourself off.
Yeah, you can piss yourself off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I gave it 5 stars. It's that good of an album, and I'm going to promote the hell out of it. You know, I'm
Thank you, Ray. Really, really appreciate it.
I'm going to promote the hell out of it, man. It's a great album. It really, really is. Some of your other music, man, you know, you've got kind of a spy theme, and again, it's cinematic. It's very sexy type music. You know, you could see it in, right, like secret agent movies and that kind of thing, right? They're all good, man. I mean, some of your other music, like The Remarkable Man, another great tune. You know, very, very cinematic. Like I said, sexy secret agent type feel to it. First Chance to Hear showcases a lot of your talents on that track. That's another great tune. Those Pacific Harm, you know, I was going to mention some other songs here, and I just lost track of my thought here. I don't know. That's what happens when you start getting old.
Oh no, it's not age doesn't well.
Oh, Spy in the Sky. That was actually a book as well, right? It was a British spy thriller film. It was a film.
Oh, there was definitely a very B grade film
and a book. There was also a book.
Oh, right. And it had this absolutely wonderful artwork for the poster.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually watch it. I just read about it, but apparently it was just a very, very boring kind of Cold War film. A lot of people talking, but not a lot of spying and not a lot of stuff in the sky. But I actually, I think I came up with that title independently, and then I searched for it and I said, "Oh wow, there's a movie. Oh god, it's got a great poster." And I thought, yeah, I'm going to use that title. But
was that
there's a lot of
you singing on that track? Because you sounded very different on that.
Do you mean the spoken word version?
Yeah.
That's the Shatner.
That's the Shatner connection. It didn't sound like Shatner though. It's funny.
All right. So yeah, he doesn't sound like he used to on the Transformed Man album of the 60s or from brain freeze, just like my favorite cover version ever, Rocket Man.
Yeah.
I don't think he even put it on an album, just the video. If you go out and check out the video of him doing it, he's got the three William Shatners doing the 3 parts on Rocket Man. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
I got to check it out.
But it's so iconic. It's even been parodied so many times. The Family Guy, I think, got an episode where they recreate the whole section just because that's what they do. But yes, he's got a more of a he's certainly got a deeper, almost histrionic kind of thing going on these days.
Very different. You work with Billy Sherwood too, right?
So that was kind of that was the deal. So we're talking a song for everyone out there. Spy in the Sky Part 3.
Right.
And it's the section of the song that has the lyrics and the melody, and it's kind of it was a song I was very fond of, and I'd recorded a vocal for it, and which I thought it's fine, and I honestly don't know where the idea came from. It was a made up idea. Just it'd be funny if I could get William Shatner on this. That would be so cool. And in my case, I have a hard time letting go of ideas. And, Billy Sherwood had worked with Shatner on a couple of albums at that point. And in a way that William Shatner was not approachable, Billy Sherwood was.
Yeah.
So I contacted Billy Sherwood and I said, is this something that we could make happen? Because, Billy's he's the producer, he's the engineer, he can do absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And he made it happen. So he just popped over to the Shatner residence, I suspect, one Sunday afternoon or something like that. And he took care of it. And so he sent me the finished vocal track. And it's the most extraordinary thing I've ever heard, because I heard it in isolation without the music. And the words themselves, they're very over the top. They're very, actually, if you look at the lyrics, a lot of them are kind of adapted from Winston Churchill's speeches and that sort of stuff.
Right.
It's it's still a song about a particular kind of subject, but it's got that delivery to it. And so I heard this isolated vocal, and the vocal on its own is so completely over the top and just completely out there. And I listened to it. I thought, oh, what have I done? But I put it to the music, and I get it. God, this is the most amazing thing. So it's because I think when you're recording that, he had to compete with the music. He had to compete with the lyrics. So as you say, it doesn't sound like him. It's certainly not what I expected.
Right.
But it was so completely over the top and fitting in with the song that I cannot not smile on my face when I listen to it.
I've had Billy on the show many times too. He's a good guy.
Oh, he's extraordinary.
Do you know his godfather was?
I don't think so.
Milton Berle.
Oh, really?
No, a lot of people don't know that.
It's hard to imagine anyone taking over from Chris Squire and Yes.
Yeah.
But Billy's the guy, right?
He
can do it. He's an extraordinary player, and on top of that, he was chosen by Chris. So
yeah,
done deal.
I interviewed Chris way back when too. Yeah.
Oh, how did that go?
Good. Well, he was with Steve Hackett. They did an album together.
Oh, they were doing that.
Squack It.
Yeah. Yes.
That was a good album too. Really good album.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too. He called me from Hawaii. He was on holiday, I think. I was a little upset with him because that was when they dumped John Anderson, and I'm a diehard Yes fanatic from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I wasn't too happy when they, because he got sick and everything, they wanted to continue touring, and they just hired somebody else. So I told him.
Yeah. Well, I think Chris is very pragmatic, right?
Yeah.
From what I understand.
Yes.
He would do whatever it took to keep the band going.
Exactly. Yeah, great bass player. My favorite album of all time is Fish Out of Water. I mean,
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Love that album. I asked him, I said, can't you do a fish out of water too? And he just laughed.
Well, he could. He was doing that. I guess he'd already done the conspiracy stuff with Billy Sherwood at that point.
Yeah,
He?
Billy, yeah.
I think that was. I assume that was kind of the follow up.
Yep.
But no, that the Squacket album was really fascinating. Listening to that, picking out. Oh, I guess this is a Steve part. Oh, that's clearly a Chris part.
Yes.
And I think Steve said that Chris asked Steve to join Yes as well. At that point. Perhaps way too much talent in one place.
Yeah.
But it is a shame they didn't do a follow up to Squack It.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That would have been good. I didn't know there was a lot of fighting in Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Rick Wakeman told me that. Michael Franklin told me that, the producer. Michael's working on 1,000 Hands 2 with John Anderson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Are they still working on that?
They're still working on it.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
As a matter of fact, I'm the one who got them to get John McLaughlin. They wanted John McLaughlin, and I hooked them up with John McLaughlin.
Oh, wow.
Play on the album. So
that's awesome.
I'm telling you, man, it's networking. You know,
That's who you know.
I put a lot of people together. You know, I don't get any money for it, but I just love doing it. I just love doing it.
Cut for that. I think I've learned from my early days of internet forums not to get involved in the John Yes arguments, unfortunately.
Right.
But you know, it's you have to do what you do to continue to be a band and work. But just this last weekend, my wife said to me, "You know what? We should watch a Yes concert from that period with John." I think something had shown up on their Yes Instagram thing that day, so we watched I think it was the 2004 show with John and Rick and Alan and Steve and you know, it was just it was extraordinary. It was still that time when they're all cohesive and together and playing well.
Exactly.
And, you know, you're close to tears on parts of that.
I know
that performance, the chemistry between them, and just the sheer amount of talent on display.
The only guy I haven't interviewed was Steve Howe.
Oh, yes.
Everybody else, I've done everybody else, from Patrick Moraz, who's a really good guy, Rick Wakeman, then everybody else. Steve's a little tougher to get a hold of nowadays.
I did meet them at a meet and greet in the Australian shows in like 2003 or something like that. And Steve seemed like a very personal person. He was very kept to himself. He could tell he just played a performance. He'd played his heart out, and he was a bit over it all, I think top 3 guitar players of all time, I think Steve Howe is one of mine. He's that good. You know, when you can play electric and acoustic and slide and, oh my God, he can do it all, you know? And he is absolutely on fire on some of those 70s Yes albums as well.
Yeah. He's incredible.
Whenever I listen to the original version of Awaken, and he's doing his solo in that kind of first section. Yeah. And that, man, Steve's on fire. He just blows me away here.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris is my favorite bass player of all time.
Yeah, me too.
I'd never understood the concept of lead bass until I heard Yes, and I heard Chris and started to understand what he was doing.
Tell you what, though, you know who could have also been a great replacement for Chris is Geddy Lee. Did you see him in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah, doing Roundabout and Owner.
Oh, he fit right in, man.
Actually, no, he didn't do Owner, did he? I think
he did.
He did Roundabout.
He did Roundabout, and then they do. I
think Steve was on a Rickenbacker for Owner. I don't know why. I seem to remember that.
Only one that they, you know.
Yeah, no.
That one too. Yeah.
Geddy was.
He was good.
Yes.
He fit right in.
Well, and he's got the high pitched voice that could have worked as well.
He does. Okay, My favorite Australian rocker, Billy
Ooh.
Thorpe.
All right, of course.
He was great, man.
He was. He actually
Yeah.
he was his music was still moving into prog
Yes.
directions right at the end there, I think, before he passed away. He'd put out this album. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was, it compounded all his musical knowledge, and an album that should have been a huge hit in the old, in the old system, in the old days. It would have been a huge, ubiquitous, huge event. Yeah, we used to play, most people I know, in the cover band days when you're
Love
first
Billy
starting
Thorpe.
out.
And he was
that
around a
one of-
long time,
Oh, he was.
Yeah. A lot of people just remember him from Children of the Sun, but
Right.
which was that was a big hit. I mean, it was a good hit here in the States,
Mm.
On Album Rock and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
was
No.
great.
He. But everything else, just a great player as well. I mean, I remember in the, and I think it was in the 90s, he was playing one of the TV shows here, and
Right.
it was going out live, and he's in the middle of his solo, and the string broke. It must have been like the high E string or something broke on his guitar, and didn't bat an eyelid, continued with the rest of the solo, somehow did everything he had to do to make it work.
Amazing.
And no one noticed until the host at the end said, "Oh, by the way, he actually broke a string during that song and somehow managed to keep it together." So amazing stuff.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, great player.
Have you had any formal training, reading music theory, anything like that?
I took up violin when I was
Really?
6. Yeah, I said to my parents, I really want to do violin. Why? Because I really like the way it looks.
Huh.
And I got a violin and I loved the way it looked. And then I said, well, you got to have lessons. Okay, all right, we'll have a lesson. And, you got to practice now. So what? But I stuck at violin for a few years and I was never very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and that's the only training I've ever had. So I've never had a guitar
Really?
lesson.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
everything beyond that, I taught myself.
You guys
I
blow
think-
me away. As a guitarist myself, I don't know, I can't accomplish that. I can't just listen to things by ear or just, it's just hard for me. I get stuck and frustrated.
Well, I think everyone who says they didn't have lessons, I think they'll wish they did.
Yeah.
When you say, "Oh, I didn't have a lesson," but if I had taken lessons, probably I could have got there twice as fast.
I don't know. I took lessons and you guys just blow me away, man. Just
Well,
by ear.
again, I took violin lessons, but
Mm-hmm.
all that was about was you learn a song, right, and you learn to play that song, and then you move on
Right.
to the next one, and
Right.
you learn another song, and you just play what's on the
Exactly.
paper
It gets
and
boring.
Learn that,
Yeah.
yeah, especially if you don't like the song much, and I would imagine a lot of us musicians who like to write, like to listen, have very, very firm tastes on what we like and don't like.
Right.
So when you're doing a few weeks of lessons and you're stuck on this one song that you don't really care for,
True.
so there was a bit of theory I was learning there, but nowhere in the music lessons did they teach you the idea of just learning to play,
Right.
or playing by ear, or here's a melody, play it back, or this is how everything fits together.
Yeah.
I never got any of that, so I think it was that experience where I said, well, I'm not taking lessons again. It's not fun. I've got to look into things that are interesting and inspire me to keep playing.
Yeah. Too bad you couldn't say, "Oh, teach me how to play Steve Hackett."
Yeah, well,
maybe
today you could.
today you could. I
Yeah,
think.
because I guess there's a lot more music teachers out there,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot more great musicians who, amongst many things, make their living being a teacher.
Exactly. Yeah. My guitar teacher tried to get me into music theory and all that stuff. That's when I dropped out. I said,
Right.
"Man, I don't want to do
Yeah,
math."
it is boring.
Yeah. Teach me to be like
I-
David Gilmour.
Yeah.
Teach me comfortably numb, man. That's all I want to know.
Well, from my point of view, learning a Gilmour solo probably is a lot like playing a violin kind of tune.
Right.
There's
True.
a lot of similarity there. So I still like to think that years later, those lessons kind of infused into my guitar playing,
Mm-hmm.
into some of the solos I try to do. But it would have been a heck of a lot easier to have had lessons and just have someone save you all that time. Well, here's the thing you want to do. This is how to do it. Oh, is that it?
Yeah. Yet
I don't know. It's hard.
all the legends
Yeah.
never read music.
Well, that's true.
Hendrix, the Beatles, they never really read music. If it wasn't for George Martin with the Beatles, they would have had no idea.
Yeah, I remember that the story about why George is putting the music in a different key for the different instruments.
Right.
Like one of the brass instruments, and John saying, George, how come this song's in this key? Well, because that instrument plays in that key.
Right.
George, that's stupid. Why don't we just call that?
I just talked to Tommy Rowe. Do you remember Tommy Rowe back in the '60s? He did Sweet Pea, Dizzy.
Right. Okay.
Early '60s, he did Sheila.
Right.
And he went on tour with the Beatles, and he was at the first concert in America, besides the Ed Sullivan Show, at the Washington Coliseum, and he played with the Beatles. Well, come to find out, the Beatles played his tune Sheila. They did a cover version of it. They played it in the wrong key. George Harrison played it on the wrong key, so it's exactly what you're saying.
No, well, I mean, I can't imagine the Beatles without George Martin.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess they would have turned into something different. I'm sure they still would have been very successful, but you wouldn't have got those psychedelic masterpieces that they did later on.
And Brian Epstein, they wouldn't have been polished.
Well, that's true.
They would have been the first punk rockers.
Yeah, in leather and so on. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, congratulations on something here. I'll embarrass you here a little bit. Yeah. You achieved you winning the Music Oz Australian Independent Music Award for Best Instrumental for the track Critical Mass Part 2. So you are getting some accolades here.
I keep it here on the desk to remind
me. Awesome. Good for you.
A bit of
yeah.
So that was independence, the name of the word there. So we for a while there in Australia there was this alternative awards show, which was not completely industry driven by the major labels or by the members of the association who were the major labels. So yeah, that was absolutely a thrill to get there. And that was so that was Critical Mass Part 2 again, which is more of a kind of a spy kind of guitar song.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I see good things for you, man. I foresee the future. You're going to hit it. You're going to hit it big, I think.
Well, you just
something's going to come about.
Just got to keep at it.
You got to keep at it. The right people, I'm going to expose your music as much as I can because it's incredible. And I've interviewed a lot of people, so I do know what good music is all about. And
I really appreciate that.
I really mean this sincerely.
Thank you so much.
Sure, man. I was going to add, what I was going to, oh, this is interesting. What was the first concert you ever went to?
Actually, no one's ever asked me that. I've got the correct answer and then I've got the wrong answer.
Okay.
But the correct answer is in I think it would have been in 1988. That's showing my age. The Brisbane Expo '88. It was the World's Fair in Brisbane, and they had a river stage there. The first show I saw was Jerry Harrison of Talking Heads doing his solo show. That was around the time he had the Casual Gods album. He had Rev It Up on the airwaves, and so he's in Brisbane on a Wednesday night or something, playing his show, playing Talking Heads songs and solo songs, and that was my first proper concert, which was awesome, wonderful. Now, if you're on if I was talking to an Australian person, I'd say, the first show I saw was John Farnham, the Australian singer, playing at Expo '88, and it would have been, that could have prolonged the conversation. But no, I got to say, I think it was Jerry Harrison.
Okay. Very good band. Very good band.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's touring with Adrian Belew now. They're doing. Was it Remain in Light? I'm not sure. They're doing, that Talking Heads album. They're playing in full. So
and some King Crimson stuff I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
with Adrian Blue. I had Adrian on not long ago, as a matter of fact, about a month ago. He's a really good guy too.
Oh, he
Yeah,
blows me away as well.
yeah.
It's not a popular opinion, but
Hmm.
I prefer the King Crimson with Adrian
With
Blue in it.
Adrian, yeah,
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 and I don't know. I guess he's got that extra melodic sensibility that he brings to it. He's got that Bowie thing going on. He's got the melodies. He's got the interesting words and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff. The wordplay.
You know, when he
And
when he sings "Dinosaur," he sounds like John
oh
Lennon a lot. I told him that.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. I actually bought a new amp a few months ago, and the first thing I started playing on it was Dinosaur.
that's funny.
And no one knew what the song was.
I
No one
know.
knows.
I
But
can hear that
yeah,
over
that's a
and over
great.
again.
Yeah. Um,
Okay,
yeah.
what's next? New music. You get more music coming?
Yeah. So there's always a few things on the back burner.
Okay.
And as I said, there's a new album coming out from this United Progressive Fraternity, which has got one of my tracks on it. Let's see. Recently I recorded a vocal and some guitar parts for an upcoming Samurai of Prog album.
Okay.
They Marco Bernard reached out to me. He wanted me to sing. So what the hell? What do you want me to sing on this for? I said, oh, it's this concept where we've got different singers on different. All right, I'll. No one's asked me to sing. That's crazy. Um,
You've got a good
and
voice. You got a really good voice.
it's. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Clearly, the
I
the,
think
the,
so.
the, own, the owner of the voice is never enamored with the voice.
Of course.
Yeah, but Monsters from the Ed originally at some point was going to be a Topographic Oceans. It was going to be 2 albums. It was going to be
Right.
4 epics. And again, I was at a turning point where I had these 3 epics,
Hmm.
and I said, right, what are we going to do here? And I was thinking in terms of well, if I get to make a vinyl version of this, I want this to fit on a vinyl. So I don't want, for instance, I don't need a 60-minute album. That's not going to work, especially if there's 3 tracks or.
Yeah.
So I'll keep it down to a vinyl length
Right.
because you've got so many considerations: the cost of making vinyl, the cost of postage or distribution, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I'll keep it to vinyl. What it means though is that I've got a leftover track from Monsters that didn't get on Monsters.
Hmm.
So that's something I'm finishing off, and the other tracks going forward. So the next album is on the way. And hopefully it will be a shorter gestation time than say the 4 years between the previous 2 albums.
Right. Good.
So
Good.
yeah,
Good. Good.
always.
Yeah. When that comes out,
Always
we'll get you on again and talk about that one
awesome.
for sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Always, you always got to try to move forward and
Sure.
make new music.
Definitely. Now, here's a big question. How will you tour? How will that work out? Obviously, you
is a
got to
big
get a
question.
band, right?
Yes.
Can't be a one-man show, can it?
So I have played versions of these songs in 3-piece bands
Okay.
in the past. So there was we had a version of this band knocking around maybe 10 years ago, where we didn't do too badly some of these songs.
Right.
So I actually got a couple of guys I'm playing with at the moment that we're trying to do our own thing. There's a band name we're called Ambient Den, which is just an anagram of our 3 first names.
Oh, good.
But it's an attempt to write more collaborative music.
Right.
I don't know. I think of us as the 3 elderly Pink Floyd guys playing on the houseboat together, just jamming around, coming up with stuff. So that there's a possibility there. I think the more likely one of the more likely ideas I've had is you've got to keep your costs down if you're going to tour, especially if you're going to tour overseas and without label support, clearly, which I do not have. So I'm toying with the idea of just putting together an orchestral backing to translate these songs. So I'd
Very
play the
nice.
guitar, and there'd be just limiting it to
Yeah.
an I know everyone does it, and it's been done so many times, but I think it could really work for some of these pieces of music. And then,
Hmm.
in some places I can play along to backing, but if it gets to the point where it's something where people want to see, eventually it could actually be, a local orchestra here in Brisbane, for instance, putting on a show to do that. As long as we've got the arrangements all worked out. I'm probably very much influenced by what Hans Zimmer and what Danny Elfman have
Hmm.
been doing at the moment, where they've just been out there on tour
Yeah.
with these kind of orchestras. Clearly, I'm not in that league. It's not something I can afford to do, but the work that they're showing, the career retrospectives that they're showing, and I've seen the Hans Zimmer show a couple of times, and you had
Hmm.
Guthrie Govan there playing on guitar, and
Right.
Johnny Marr, and all these. He's just got this huge mashup of big band and film music. And I know Danny Elfman's been kind of doing the same with his Oingo Boingo stuff and his film scores and
Hmm. Right.
solo album. That trying to appropriate that kind of approach is what I would like to do.
Yeah.
So I could start at least with, well, here's what the orchestra would do, and work from there.
Right.
So it could be a way forward. I certainly have had it put to me though. Someone reached out saying, "Hey, if you wanted to play, one of the prog-rock cruises or something,
Right.
these are the musicians that we could hook you up with."
Hmm.
Who in there? So I think that's also a possibility. Put
Okay.
together a trio, here are the arrangements, we rehearse remotely, and then
Yeah.
get to and do a show here and there.
I had Jan Hammer on the show, and of course he teamed
Oh
up with
yes,
Jeff Beck. That was a good collaboration. They toured together.
yes. You
Yeah.
can team up with Jeff Beck. You're
Oh yeah.
doing pretty well.
How would you and Mike Oldfield do if you partnered? Oh, that could that work?
Oh God, I'd love to.
Yeah.
But I know that people ask Mike Oldfield that, and he says he's not very collaborative.
Really?
He kind of says, yeah, no, he doesn't work very well in collaboration,
Yeah.
and I respect that. Probably, I think that's his polite way of saying I don't need anyone.
Yeah. I know.
I got my ideas. I got enough going on. I don't need to compromise or talk to anyone.
I can give you a
Um,
list of people that like to collaborate if you want
all
me
right,
to.
always interesting.
Oh, yeah,
I think
exactly.
you've just got to find the right chemistry
Yeah,
with the
e-
right person.
exactly. There's
It's
plenty of Prague guys out there, that's for sure.
mm,
You know, Prague is still huge. You said you were talking about Australia, but other
mm,
countries, I'm sure Amsterdam,
yeah,
um, probably all of Europe.
Italy,
I know Germany.
Germany,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for
I
sure.
mean, Germany is one of the places where I
Hmm.
actually, have distribution support there.
Yep.
So Just for Kicks Music in Germany um, does great stuff, and certainly we've thought about the idea of jetting up and moving over there to give
Yeah.
this thing a shot.
Yogi's doing
Certainly,
well there, Yogi Lang. They have a new album out too called Crime Scene, which is very
right.
interesting. They take certain cases, like
Mm.
some crazy
Oh yes,
crime scenes, and they put it into music, and it kind of scary in a way.
right.
Some of the serial killers and things like that.
Well, that's awesome. You've got your inspiration to
That's
start
your
with.
inspiration, just like you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like your six wives or whatever.
exactly,
That's
exactly. That's
your
what makes
crime
a great
scenes.
prog record.
Yep. Start with a big inspiration and go from there. That's
Exactly.
certainly one way of doing it.
Yeah. All right, Ben, here's your final question. I ask everybody this question, and I
I
get
should
very
have watched
interesting
all the
answers.
way to the end of your interviews. I watched a whole bunch of them, but not the last question. Idiot.
You cut it off at the end, huh? I know my interviews tend to run kind of long. I want to give people their money's worth. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, to
Mm.
perform with, collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
Oh man. I guess it would be my phrase. It would be I'd get Bernard Herrmann to do an orchestral backing to it. I'd get oh geez, I'd sit in a room and co-write with George Gershwin,
Gershwin,
if I could, or even Brian Wilson, for that matter, almost as good. If you could get, it's I guess most of them are dead or not working anymore.
That's all right.
It's it's a really interesting question though, because that's something that we always fantasize about. But it's the lack of being able to do that drives you to do your own thing and drives you to be who you are.
Right.
So, for instance, if starting off as a musician, if I'd been lucky enough to be in a room with these people, with my heroes, even playing a band with them, in a supporting role, I imagine there's a possibility that I could be a bitter old man, not having taken my own path and working on my own thing and trying to do my own thing. And you see that a bit today. Yeah.
It's true.
But I've got to say, Brian Wilson, of all people, he just seemed like a guy just reaching out for an understanding collaborator.
Right.
Someone, like Van Dyke Parks or something like that. Someone who would appreciate what he does.
Sure.
And indulge where he wanted to go musically rather than having him try to fit in a mold. Yeah.
Who's another good collaborator? Neil Morris.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Neil does a lot of collaborations too. He's always so busy, the guy. He's always, and he does so many different things, Very eclectic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. A whole lot of projects you see coming up.
A lot of different projects. That's a good answer, though. I haven't had that answer yet. Common answers I get are McCartney, of course, Jimi Hendrix. Robin Trower said James Brown. Petula Clark said Pink Floyd. Would you believe it?
Wow.
I'd love to play with Pink Floyd. That blew me away. I never thought that.
Obviously, we all would love to do that and fantasize doing that. But I don't know. I'm at the point now where I say they don't need me. There's nothing I can do to make them better.
There's a new wave of great music out there. There really is, and you're part of that. And
I appreciate that. Thank you. Ray.
Good things are going to happen because how much rap music can you hear?
Well, I know we're out of time, but AI is the next problem we're all going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
The music that's being generated by AI is that is apparently being generated by AI because of what we see in the presentations. It's just absolutely depressing to see that TV shows and movies and ads, they're not going to need people anymore. They're just going to get their stuff from here.
It's kind of scary.
Sorry, I actually turned this into a downer. I'm sorry. Maybe we collaborate with AI.
AI, there you go. You never know. Never know what you're going to have to do in life.
Exactly. You have to. Yep. Got to keep an eye on the horizon there.
Exactly.
Or we'll become extinct.
You got to keep your enemies close. I want to say, purchase the latest release by Ben Craven, Monsters from the Id, 5 stars. It's a great album. Everybody buy it, man. It's available at bencraven.bandcamp, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's also on Amazon, I believe.
It could be. If you're in the US, you can get it through the Bandwagon.
Okay.
Bandwagon distribution through the US. They're absolutely wonderful. They've taken some of my back catalogue as well, so they might still have some vinyl versions of Great and Terrible versions if you're interested. So yeah, it's available there, hard copy in the US. Europe, not so much. I think Just for Kicks in Germany sold out, and they have a limited catalog of what they keep in stock.
Yep.
But yeah, bencraven.bandcamp is a great place to start. If you just want the digital one, get it from there. You get it in high res. You get it in 2496. You can get the 5.1 surround version if you want. It's all there.
I actually bought the digital version. Normally, I don't have to buy things, but I couldn't find your album anywhere.
Reached out. Let me know.
I bought it. I bought it on your website, so at Bandcamp.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, no problem. because I've got to listen to all the songs. I can't do an interview with just listening to a few songs. That's not going to work out.
That's what makes you different. That's what makes you different from everyone else.
Yeah, I mean,
you do your research.
Some people like book reviews. They'll read the cover, and and they don't even read the book. I read every book that I review. That's the fun part about the job, man. Listening to music is the best part of the job. I love it. But you're on Facebook as well. You're on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon.
Yes, that's an interesting thing. I know we're out of time, but that's an attempt to carve a way forward for musicians in general to try to kind of make a living in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, I throw up exclusive content there, but yeah, I'm not convinced that the patronage model is the way going forward for musicians in general. But anyway,
right.
I digress.
Well, you got to try everything you can.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention too Freya Dean's website as well on www.freyadean.com. She's got some beautiful work.
She's amazing. And
she is amazing.
And she and Roger had an exhibition recently over the last few months, I think, and she produced a whole heap of work for that. Yeah, she's awesome, and she certainly doesn't need to do album cover artwork at all.
So talented.
No.
Yeah. Ben, thank you.
I always feel guilty asking her for artwork for an album cover because I don't think that's something that she's really interested in, but I insist on it. Yeah.
Well, you got it. You're labeled legendary prog artist.
Yeah. If it's on a label, can't argue with that.
Hey, you're up there with Yes. Let's see, Uriah Heep. Who else? ELP.
Well,
I don't know if ELP did any.
Steve Hackett did one.
Steve Hackett. That's right. All those guys.
Ozzy Bisa.
Yeah. You're with all those guys now. Yeah.
Asia.
That's right. Asia.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And so on and so on.
Yep. Thank you, Ben. It's been a pleasure, man.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
We'll get together again when you release the new album. Hopefully you'll go on tour, and we hope to see you in the States one day as well.
I would love to. Dearly would love to.
That'd be awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. We
Lovely
really
talking to you, mate.
Good talking to you too, man. Take care.
Have a good one. See you later.
All right, Ben.